Hello, my good friends. Mike Shreve here, and welcome to today's Facebook Live. We are going on part 2 of Slaying the Time Dragons. Why are we spending so much time basically bagging on other people? It's because you guys remember this concept about freelancing. It's the same thing that they tell you when you get on a plane. If you're a parent of a child, they say put your mask on first before you can help other people. That's what we're talking about in these Facebook Lives this week, is making sure that you put on your mask first so that you are well, so that you are feeling good, so that you are focused, so that you are where you need to be, so that you can properly help other people at a high level. One of the things I'm always teaching is that freelancers are only as good as the client will allow them to be. So that means it's up to you to control that relationship, or at least position that relationship in a way where the client is helping you to be better, right? So that's why we're talking about time vampires. All right, I got 2 for you today. The first is called Moocher Mike. The second is Soap Opera Sam. These are some of my favorite time vampires. The first one, Moocher Mike, these are the type of people, whether they're clients or just people in your life, who tend to ride your coattails and just take and take and take and take. And after interacting with them, you're just spent. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't, like you don't come away from a meeting or a relationship or a phone call or an email or whatever feeling good and positive and happy. You come away feeling like, man, I hope we don't have to have another call tomorrow. Now, I've got a couple of personal examples that I want to share with you, because it depends on your personality as to what Moocher Mike looks like, right? It depends on what coattail riding, what sort of sucking the energy out of you looks and feels like. So one of the things that I get in trouble with personally all the time, and this isn't bragging, this is just my nature, and it's actually a defense mechanism because of how often I moved growing up. But one of the things that I like to do is I just like to give a bunch of stuff to someone and be like, I'm going to help you, and make, frankly, a lot of promises and really bend over backwards to help someone else. I've done this many times in my life, and I don't necessarily think it's always been altruistic, right? It's sometimes just a defense. I want to be friends with them, and that type of thing. And almost 9 times out of 10, what happens is that attracts moochers. That attracts the people who just want free stuff. It attracts the people who have no intention on ever returning any of the value that you've provided. I mean, I've done stuff like get freelancer friends 6-figure contracts. I've done things like spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of my own money to help train someone in their skills, in the hopes that they would take those skills and help me build something or whatever. And in 9 times out of 10, in those cases, there's been no gratitude, no loyalty, no return on that investment at all, right? So that is, for me, what a Moocher Mike looks like. For you, maybe a Moocher Mike is somebody who just leans on you emotionally and wants you to solve all your problems and has no intention in that relationship of ever trying to help you in any way. These types of people are massive time vampires. They are, and I'm being dead serious, keeping you from achieving whatever goal it is that you want to achieve. Now, how do you spot them straight away? It's really this simple: minimum inputs and high expectations. So these are people who will put as little as possible into the relationship, whether it's a client or a friend or someone you hire. They'll put as little as possible into the relationship, and their expectations will be obscene, right? They'll be like, I want to work an hour a day, and I want to have $10,000 a month, blah, 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 and I want you to train me, and I want you to do this. I like to think of them again as the lazy cat, right? It's the cat that just kind of like rubs against you and is like, feed me, That is how you can spot the Moocher Mike from a mile away, from before you even start working with them. The opposite of this is when you're starting to work with either a client or someone in your personal circle, or maybe you hire someone. They are like, you feel sometimes that they're they're like matching your input into the relationship, right? So especially with clients, okay? So let's say that you're like, okay, client, I need X, Y, and Z. And they come back and you're like, here's what I got. I gave you X, Y, and Z, but I also thought you might want this and you might want this and you want this. You can tell pretty early on whether they're there just to suck the life out of you or whether they're there to be an equal partner in this client freelancer relationship. Same with personal relationships, same with et cetera, right? Now, how do you prevent this type of relationship? It's very, very simple. You make people pay for it. Now, for the most part, with very few exceptions, people typically only value the things that they pay for. Now, I'm not saying that everything has to be paid for in money, right? I'm not saying your friends need to pay to hang out with you, right? But you must have them pay for whatever it is you're giving and giving. One of the things I absolutely regret, just recently in the past year, I've had this happen several times. Several people who I've helped to make 6 figures a year in hopes that they would help me out have just vanished, have just totally disappointed me in terms of what they were, their return on all of the time and effort and things that I've provided. I never asked them to pay for anything. Again, I don't mean by money, but I never said, here's what I want out of this relationship, and I expect to get out of this relationship that thing. And so what happened? To them, it was just an open door. They just looked at it as a one-way relationship. It was my fault that it got to that point where they felt they could just leave and there was no repercussions because I didn't set the boundaries. Do you see? So how do you prevent it is you set up the expectation that there is some return. With a client, you can say, you need to pay me. If you're doing a free trial or something, well, the expectation is that at the end, if I do a good job, you're going to pay me to do further work in the future, et cetera, et cetera. Now, how do you deal with it if you're in this, you're in a relationship with a moocher, Mike? This is the one that sucks the most. It's the worst to deal with, but you have to retract your promises. You have to cut off the enabling that you're doing in this relationship. So if you're a client and the client just keeps taking and taking and taking, just like I said yesterday, it's really, really hard to retract or step back from a relationship that you're in with a client where you have given them the false idea of what your boundaries are, right? They think your boundaries are one thing because you didn't set up, like what I talked about, making them pay. Okay, so that's the first one, Moocher Mike. Ugh, makes me crazy. The second one is Soap Opera Sam. This is, poor Sam, drama. Soap Opera Sam is someone who is the type of person, and often these are clients, who feel important when attention is paid to them. And they feel that the best way to get attention is to find, create, cause, look for drama. So for example, recently I had to let go one of a team member of mine in one of my businesses who was Soap Opera Sam. Every little thing had to be a very big emotional thing. Now, in personal life, it's annoying. In business, it actually has detrimental effects to the business. It halts progress. It stops you from being able to serve at your highest level when you're dealing with, what we call putting out fires, or when you're dealing with, a client says, you misspelled, when you sent me an email, you misspelled this one thing and it's this big drama, big deal, and everyone. It causes problems in business. Terrible in the personal life, causes legit problems in business, okay? Now, how do you spot Soap Opera Sam? One is you feel bad after you talk to them, sort of like the Moocher Mike, right? Except this time it's more like you come away and you're feeling more pessimistic about stuff. You're feeling more overwhelmed about your working relationship. You're like, oh man, I thought we were just going to do this one thing, and now it feels like we have like 50,000 things and they're so big and there's no way I'm going to be able to. You feel worse, you feel less optimistic, you feel less motivated, you feel less excited about the future after talking to them because it's just constant barrage of drama. Now, The second thing that you can sort of look for when you're working with these types of people is that things that are small and unimportant become big and very important to these types of people, okay? Now, I want you to think back to the 80-20 rule. It's one of my favorite rules. I'm always trying to force it down you guys' throats, to be honest. 80% of your success, of the success of your client, of the success of your freelancing business, comes from 20% of the things that you do. What that means is 80% of the stuff that you are doing only leads to a 20% increase in results. Therefore, most of what happens in any business relationship, in any transaction, in anything that you're trying to build doesn't actually matter. It really honestly doesn't matter. Look, you and I, we're not trying to squeeze out the 20%, right? We're not trying to build a multi-billion-dollar company, and most of us aren't working with multi-billion, multi-million-dollar companies where they are trying to squeeze out that last 20%. Most of us are working with clients who are still trying to figure out how to get that 80%. They're still trying to figure out what's the 20% of stuff that actually gets me the 80% of the results. And therefore, if you have a client who is focusing, or a person in your life, or an employee, or a contractor, or you're hiring other freelancers, and they're spending most of their time on the 80% of stuff that just doesn't matter, they are a soap opera Sam. They are a soap opera Sam, and you need to be careful, if not outright blatant, just don't work with them, because they can slow things down, and that causes serious problems in your business. Now, how do you prevent working with these types of people? Filters. There's a link somewhere on this page where I did another Facebook Live just like this on how to set up filters. But you need to have filters in your business so that you can have an opportunity to work with these type of people and see if they do blow things up. And it needs to be a low commitment on your part and a low commitment on their part in order to sort of flesh and feel each other out a little bit, so that you can ascend them to your more long-term relationship, higher ticket stuff in your business. But the only way to prevent that is to have a filtering system in place. Click a link somewhere. It's another Facebook Live that we did, I think, last week on how to set up those filters, okay? Now, how do you deal with them? Let's say that you're in a relationship and you're in Soap Opera Sam. Again, this is one of those time vampires where there's not much you can do except to cut them out. Here's why. Too many of us think, whether we're in a client and freelancer relationship, or we're in a leadership role where we have other people working with us, or whether we're in a friendship role, we think that we can change people. The reality is, to change another person who A, isn't aware that you're trying to change them, or B, isn't willing to change, takes an unbelievable amount of emotional, mental, spiritual, and just physical effort to make that happen. So much so that I would even say, for the most part, trying to change someone isn't going to happen. Now, look, I've been in this situation. Remember, I told you recently I had to fire someone? 6 months I tried to change this person. Total waste of time. Total absolute waste of time. And it was unfair of me to assume that this person was going to change just because I wanted to. That was not cool by me, right? That's not. I mean, could you imagine going up to a stranger and being like, "Hi, I'm gonna change you," right? You would never do that, right? So when you're in these relationships with a soap opera Sam, don't expect that something you do is going to change who they fundamentally are. Look, they get their importance based off of the attention they receive from the drama they create. That's some deep psychological stuff, right? You're not going to change that overnight with whatever, thing that you think you can do. So how do you deal with them? You just got to cut them out. You have to cut them out. Remember, Mike, you're such a jerk. You guys, just like they tell you on the airplane, you have to put your mask on first before you can help other people. Just like on the plane, if the pressurization drops and you don't put your mask on, you pass out, you ain't helping nobody, right? So these are tools and tips and tricks and tactics and whatever you want to call them to help make sure that you are in a good place, that you can go serve at your highest level. Because you guys, if you're not serving at your highest level, it's very difficult to grow your freelancing business. It's hard to get referrals if you're not serving at your highest level. It's hard to attract the kind of customers and clients and whatever if you aren't serving at your highest level. So that's why we're doing this video series. I'm going to do one more tomorrow, Slaying the Time Vampire. I definitely recommend, if you guys haven't yet, somewhere on here, there's a Facebook Live I did last week about how to make sure that you're only working with the best clients. Check it out. No opt-in, nothing like that. It's just one of these Facebook Live videos. All right, my friends, I love you. I will talk to you later. I hope this has been helpful. We got another one coming tomorrow, doing these things every single day, and I hope you have a good one.